and welcome to BASECAMP, the best way to start your day. I'm Jack, and I'm really glad that you joined us. BASECAMP is a tool that helps you develop the habit of spending daily time with God. In our last BASECAMP, the Lord is on the move. We covered the first 3 plagues. The water turned into blood, gnats covered the earth like dust, and frogs jumped all over everything. But still, the Pharaoh would not let God's people go, and now it's time for round number 4. So go ahead and open up those Bibles to Exodus chapter 8. We're going to start reading in verse 20 of chapter 8, but we're going to go all the way to chapter 9, verse 12. So we're going to be zooming in on the next 3 plagues. And so let's check out how this 4th plague goes down in chapter 8, starting in verse 20. Once again, Pharaoh gets the powerful hand of God brought upon Egypt. There are flies everywhere. And I don't know if you guys noticed at summer camp, but when we're there at Frontlines, there are a lot of flies around everywhere. And you know, it's just because we're at a camp and outside and all of that, but I hate them. They annoy me so much. Oftentimes in our cabin, we'll have competitions to see who can kill the most flies. So to me, this sounds like a literal nightmare and would annoy the crap out of me with swarms of flies everywhere. That is so incredibly gross. So how does Pharaoh respond, though? Let's keep reading in verse 25. Well, we've heard this story before, right? Just like before when the Lord got rid of all of the frogs, here he got rid of all the flies. And as soon as they're gone, Pharaoh changes his mind, hardens his heart, and does not let the people go. So you guess what? Guess what's coming? Round number 5 is incoming, and this one goes beyond just being gross. This really hits Pharaoh where it hurts. Start reading once again at the beginning of chapter 9. Now, back in the day, livestock represented wealth. They would show off how much they had by the amount of sheep and cows and goats and other animals that they had, and the Lord took all of it. All of Pharaoh's livestock dead. Money down the drain. And you might think that this would convince Pharaoh to let God's people go now that his wealth was threatened, but once again does not let his people go. One thing to notice, though, the Lord has consistently throughout these plagues provided his people with safety. Their animals are alive. They're protected from the flies, and this is something we will continue to see. God is protecting his people even through the craziest of miracles that are happening in the land. Despite the wickedness of the ruler, God protects his own. But God's people are still in captivity. Pharaoh has not let God's people go, so surprise, round number 6. Let's see what the Lord does next. Pick up the story again in verse 8. Right? I mean, if you don't know what a boil is, think of like a big nasty pimple, but like so huge on your skin, full of pus and goo and grossness and even thinking about it. Anyway, it's all over the Egyptian people and the animals. It's just grossness everywhere. And you may think, well, now it's affecting Pharaoh's body, getting boils all over his skin, but Pharaoh still refuses to listen. The Egyptian people have now been plagued 6 times, and still Pharaoh will not let God's people go. So time for round 7, but we're going to cover that in the next base camp. The good news, though, from today is this, that God protects and fights for his people. No matter how long it takes, God will deliver because he is the hero. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here soon for another episode of BASECAMP.